Hello.
Hey, Jesse.
How you guys doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing well. How big is Remy now?
She is massive.
Man, look at her.
It's a big girl.
Yes. How's
She's
she?
pounds now, I'm sure.
How many?
I think she's over 20 pounds now. We have our last shots on Friday, so we'll know.
Yeah. She's looking good for. She looks like she's at the correct weight. She reminds me of my Pittie back when she was her age.
Really?
Yeah.
She's lean. She's skinny and long.
Yeah. So, for puppies, once they hit 6 months, think of it as like the teenager body, and then Terrible Two's brain. At a year, you have adult body, teenager brain, and then at 2 years, adult dog.
Okay.
Okay. So, like my pit, I remember when she was around 6 months, because she was super skinny, and everybody's like, "Oh my God, do you even feed your puppy this and that?" I was like, "Yeah, she's eating like 4 cups a day."
Wow.
But she wasn't, they don't retain weight. Kind of like, as humans, as teenagers, you grow tall, but then you're very lanky. And then once you're an adult, you start to fill out.
Yeah.
It's just an exact process.
Yeah, she's and she'll do that. Like sometimes if we up her food because she gets bigger, she'll get like a little pudgy, and then she quickly eats out when she grows.
Yeah. So, but yeah, she looks good. Nothing out the ordinary.
Good.
Any questions since I've last seen you guys?
I don't think so. I mean, things have been going well.
They have been going well.
Yeah.
Training's going well. She's really smart. No concerns that I can think of.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Is Doug still around, or did he leave already?
He left already.
Okay. And did they ever end up warming up to each other, or was he like just?
No, they did. I think like the week before he left is when they finally warmed up, and maybe like once a day they'd play.
Mm-hmm.
And Remy's just like full speed, and she likes to pretend like she's submitting and get on her back, and then the second that he let her go or like looked away, she was like on top of him. Doug was really good with her. He didn't tower as much, but he would like let her jump a bit, and then eventually he'd pin her and then back off and let her play again.
Sure.
He did like start to like he'd pin her by the neck, and he would just like cup her and then let her go. Which the first time we saw it, we were like, "Oh my God, like he's gonna eat her."
Yeah, he put his whole mouth over
whole
her.
mouth over her.
He was so good.
It's normal.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, he's essentially. It sounds like either because that can be a part of play as well. And a lot of dominance or the hierarchy between dogs is established during play. It's not, people tend to think it's established through aggression or fighting, which is a part of it, but a lot of it is actually established through play. So nothing really out the ordinary. It's good for a puppy to be put in their place. I always still observe things, and then if things go a little too far, I always step in just in case so they don't escalate. Because more often than not, once tension is brought into the relationship of dogs, it's very difficult to go pre-tension, But yeah, good, excellent. Does she have any other doggy friend or puppy friends at all, or is it just Doug?
She does. We have a friend who has a lab pit bull mix, and she's probably a couple weeks younger than Remy. We've gotten them together a couple times. And then once she gets her final shots, we'll take her around a lot more dogs. But they played well. The other dog is, she's smaller and she has some like trauma. So I think she's a little bit more excitable. But Remy is kind of a bully, and not like aggressively so, but she like clearly is picking on the other puppy. So the other puppy was putting Remy in her place, but Remy listens. Like once a dog growls at her, she tucks her tail and runs, and then 5 minutes later is back at it playing.
Okay, good. So she recovers. That's good.
Yeah,
Okay.
she's good. She's just a little spunky.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. Excellent. Anything else?
Actually, real quick. So Remy has this squirrel, and if I'm playing tug of war with her, is that going to create any aggressive behaviors?
No. Or yes and no, really. Tug of war, like I play tug with my pit. It's perfectly healthy. The problem is when people don't control it. Okay, so that means like the dog is always winning, or they build it to this intensity and then they just leave it there and they don't shut the dog down, so the dog stays in this intensity. Or the dog feels that everything that they handle is theirs. Okay, to build aggression, like that's a very specific thing, you know. What I would suggest, and we can even cover it, you know, today, is do you have a release word for her?
Yeah.
What do you use? Drop?
Oh, leave it.
Leave. Okay. So think of leave it as a precursor and drop it as a release what you have. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So like, let's say you drop something on the ground and she's thinking about getting it, you would say leave it. Can't touch it, right? And then drop, or I say the word out, but drop is, you know, if she's got a bone or she has a rag or a tug, drop means release that. Okay. So you'd want to teach a release command. So if I'm playing tug with my pit and I stop and I say, and she'll keep tugging and I'll say drop or out, she'll release it and then that's it. Okay, unless I release her or give her permission to go for it again, it's now off limits. Okay, so that's the control aspect. So then I can engage with her, but I can also disengage with her on command, and then everything settles. Okay, it's pretty simple. The concept is simple. It's just whether or not Remy will give it up is the hard part. But if she's got good you know, tug drive or play drive with that, I'm more than happy to show you how to engage with her in a healthy fashion, you know, so you don't create issues.
Okay.
Yeah. That would be nice. Right? Yeah, she's quite playful.
Sure. So go. Is there anything else aside from the tug?
I mean, maybe, I think my only question is maybe just talking a little bit more on like other exercises we can be doing to start the commands. Like we did, you know, the sit, and we've been practicing that, and her down, her place she's learned, and then we've been practicing like thresholds of like stopping at the threshold and then a word for her to leave the door, which she gets most of those pretty well. So I just maybe any feedback on things we can be doing with her to practice, like the drop it or, yeah.
Okay. So you're teaching thresholds. She knows sit, she knows down, and knows place, essentially.
Yes.
Have you done any recall or come when called?
Yeah, we do that like in the backyard, and we did what you said as far as like giving her treats anytime we call her.
Sure.
We haven't really tested that yet in an unfamiliar place.
Right.
With her long lead.
So realistically speaking, because the stuff that you're teaching here, you know, it's contingent on her personality type. Unless you're super lucky and you get the 1 in a million dog whose personality shifts and she calms down and she's just always obedient, what you're doing now isn't really going to be tangible long run. Okay, and that's all puppies, okay? Because of the methods you're using, you know, food stuff, again, great for foundation, but once you go into real life, at the park, dog park, friend's house, people coming over type of deal, that's when you're gonna start to see your limitations, okay? So In terms of, I do encourage, you know, if you have a long leash, I like 30 feet, and not like a flexi leash, an actual leash that's 30 feet long. And you go to a park and there's open space and you let her be a puppy and roam around, but you have a 30-foot leash that's attached to her that you can either hold on to the end or just let it drag and you're just always close next to it, to start practicing your recall in that environment. Okay. So, you know, you would bring food and I would suggest high value stuff, you know, chicken, turkey, cheese, aged Gouda, whatever you want. And let her be a puppy. Let's say she's like sniffing at a tree and she sees squirrels and she's like really engaged in it. I can call her. She'll most likely ignore you. But then because I have the leash, I can start. What I do is when I call them, I walk backwards. So if you're holding onto the end of the leash and you're moving backwards, at some point the tension is going to redirect her to come towards you. And then you just keep moving back and I drop my hand so she sees there's a target and there's something in here. And then she runs to me and I feed her and then I say, okay, go right back to the squirrels again. You know, and that's just real basic baseline stuff. Fast forward to when she's like a year and a half or whatever, and she's off leash. If you've only done this food-based training, it may not be applicable at that point. And that's where like e-collar and that stuff comes into play. Okay. And there tends to be 6 family pet commands, as I'll put it. You have your sit, down, heel, place, come, and stay. Okay, those are like the 6 commands that the average family will use. And really it's the heel, the come, and the place command that are the most used, and the others are kind of superficial. Because the way I look at it as, like, for instance, with the sit, people really don't need the sit command. They just need to teach their puppy to sit when they want something. So if I go to grab the leash or her collar, she's already sitting. If I go get her food, she's already sitting. If I pull out some treats or a bone, she's already sitting. Because I teach it as a please. You know, when I get something that you want, you just put your butt down automatically. So I'm not saying sit 1,000 times throughout the day. The puppy or dog just does it naturally. The stay command, when people use it, it's usually like momentary. Like, I'm gonna leave out the front door, but I don't want you to follow me. But that's not a stay. That's more like a wait because it's momentary.
Right.
Stay is what I would categorize as permanent until I release you. So if she's laying down and I say stay, it means keep laying down for the next 3 hours until I release you. Okay. And then the down command, that one's like right next to place, but people don't use it as often in my experience because it's very strict. The dog has to be laying down and there's no in between. She can't sit up, she can't stand up, it's you're laying down. Whereas the go to your place is lenient, where it's just go to this object and I don't care if you're standing, sitting, or laying down or playing with the toy, just do not step off of the object, right? So people tend to use that one more because it's easier. Okay. So you already got 1, 2, 3, 4 out of the 6. You know, the heel, I don't even do heel with food because if you watch people on the street, if you know this is my hip, they'll keep their hand here as they're walking and then they'll give their puppies treats. That's not applicable to the human world and to real life. That's like if you're doing competition rally stuff. Okay. Average heel or the family pet heel is done very differently. If you do it, it's fine. I have no problem. I have no issue against it. But I don't do it because I would say, like, use your time instead of teaching that to teach something else, because I know this is not going to be applicable anyways. Okay.
Yeah, and that's the one that we don't really do anything with just because I don't know how to work with her on heel. The only way that we like establish where she walks is when we do our walks, like she has to be in one spot and I can control that since she's tiny and I have a leash.
Yeah. And then have I spoken to you about the gentle leader?
About the what?
Gentle leader?
No.
I use it for puppies under 6 months. it goes around the nose, and it's just a little strap that goes around the muzzle at the base, and then it has a little like clip here that secures the device or whatever, and then it has a little ring that you clip your leash to, and it acts as like a horse bridle.
Okay.
Right? So with a horse pulling a carriage, they have the harness and they have that thing on their face, right? But the driver is holding lines that go to the face, not to the harness, because that's how they steer the body, right? The harness is meant to pull the carriage. So think of it the same way for your dog. If you put a harness on her, it's meant for pulling, right? And it creates problems over time. And I actually just did a consultation with a lady with a pit bull, and I described to her what happens. So because they don't want pressure on the neck, they want, people get harnesses for the puppies. And then their puppy's a puppy and it's friendly, and they're jumping at dogs, so they pull back on their dog to keep them from pissing off the other dog. But then the puppy thinks, every time I see a dog, I get this negative tension and I can't get to them, and it creates frustration. And you do that over the course of months to a year or years, you get frustration to agitation to aggression. Okay, so then the dog starts barking and lunging because it keeps associating negative to other dogs, when really the owner was just trying to keep them from being a brat and jumping all over the dog. Right. So the gentle leader allows you to control her, because since it's on her face, like let's say she sees a chicken wing and she tries to go for it, the moment you pull the leash, it's going to immediately redirect her face because of where it's positioned. Okay. And I like that for puppies under 6 months, because it's right now, I think of this as kindergarten for her right now, right? Is that even if she were to get a considerable size, and even if she was a full-grown pit, it gives you the most control than like a harness would. The harness acts to the dog's benefit. The gentle leader or the halty acts for the human's benefit. Okay, and you avoid the pressure on the chest and that negative association by using that tool. So
we use a martingale collar right now.
Sure. So martingales are good, but you might find that once she hits 6 months or maybe a little bit older, unless again she's a very passive personality, you're going to start having difficulty. Okay. Martingales are really effective, but they take more technical skill. Okay. So if it's not positioned all the way up here at the very top, and if you're not 100% on how to use pressure and relaxing and stuff like that, you're going to end up creating constant tension. And a martingale, because it closes when it feels tension, there's potential of choking. Okay. Yeah. Right now she's a tiny little thing. Just wait till she's bigger.
Yeah. Okay. So it's called a gentle leader.
Correct. And then if you have, you can get on Amazon. So like let's say she's going to be 60 pounds. I would just get her the one for a 60-pound dog. It just means there's going to be a little bit of an excess of strap here, but she'll grow into it. Okay. So you're not buying like 3 different ones. Okay. Because if your plan is a well-trained dog, post 6 months, whenever you're ready, you're going to end up finding a trainer over by you guys that's going to be able to advance you. And in my opinion, the best trainers use remote collar. Okay. Because that's the only tool that can guarantee you control, even if there's no leash. Right. Okay. Questions?
No.
So let's go ahead. I like what you've been doing with the thresholds and everything like that. Keep doing that stuff. What I would suggest is, like, for instance, the sit. Where are you employing that?
I don't.
Employing the what?
The sit. I don't know that. Like, I think really the only place we would is putting her leash on, because like when we prepare her food, it's place and she's in her spot until she's released. Other than that, I mean, we're practicing like the mechanics of sit, but we don't really use it for anything other than like putting her leash on.
Okay, so think of applying it. So when you put the leash on, again, whenever you have anything that she wants, right? So I know you have the place. What I would suggest for now is remove it because she's now built a habit, and start using the sit.
Okay.
Okay, because sit is going to be is applicable in more contexts than places. Because like let's say you're outside in the yard and there is nowhere to place, she can always sit.
Right.
Right. So anything that she wants, whether it's a bone, to play tug, for treats, for her food, putting on her leash, before getting into the car, before leaving the front door, and then while you're locking the front door, every time you come to a stop when you're walking with her, you're just employing the sit. Okay. And actually, I'm going to send you a PDF that I dug up recently, and it's called the Learn to Earn program. And I think it actually works in conjunction with the Gentle Leader. And it's great for puppies under 6 months. It's really good foundational stuff. Excuse me. And the lady talks about how you train throughout the day to develop habits for a polite puppy. Okay, because the one thing that everybody struggles with is, okay, my dog knows these things, but what do I do with it? Right? And so for the sit, I already gave you like 6 to 8 contexts, and every time you're just employing it or making her do it and reinforce it with kibble or what have you. And the next thing you'll start to notice is she's automatically just doing these things. And then I call it polite or like saying please, like that's the dog version of please. And then you find yourself not having to say sit 1,000 times throughout the day. Okay. The place command is meant for durational work. So let's say you're going to have like a small group of people come over and you don't want Remy, and they're going to eat, and you don't want Remy like going up to people going like, oh, what's on your plate, right? That's where place command would come into play. Because then it's like, hey, go lay down there while these people are eating so you're out the way. Okay. Down command is essentially the same thing, except it's more strict, but you have both. And again, when you have the Gentle Leader, what you would do is you would already have her fitted with the Gentle Leader and the leash, because that's what's going to give you control. People expect, once I've taught my puppy place, they should just place. And I go, no, it takes, especially if you're doing food only, it takes a really long time, and you need extra tools to give you the ability to reinforce it should she decide to jump off, right? Because if she doesn't have a leash on, you're going to find yourself chasing your puppy because now it becomes a game.
Yeah, right? Nice to do that.
Yes. The come when called command, if I go to the park and I'm like, I know I have a puppy and I know they're not conditioned yet, they're on that 30-foot leash, so I can make them come back. And if I have to drag them with the leash, then I'm dragging them with the leash. But when I call them, I can make them come back. If they're in the yard, it's really personal judgment. If I see her doing something and I go, I really want to call Remy, but I'm pretty sure she's not going to come when I do so, then I don't even call her. I just go grab her.
Okay.
Right. So I avoid her ignoring the command. Okay. So dogs are all about consistency. So if I say sit, regardless if I have food or if I don't have food, or if I don't have prong, or if I don't have e-collar or whatever, I know I can make the dog sit by taking their collar, pulling up and pushing their butt down. So I can make it happen. So the dog just thinks like, oh, you somehow one way or another, when you say sit, you always make me sit. And that's this. Okay, boom, here I go. Okay, so anytime you give a command, you want to make sure that you're able to make it happen, and you never repeat, ideally. Okay. For the stage that you're in. Okay. Questions?
So then, like, with her stay command and like the thresholds, when how should we respond when she doesn't listen and she bolts before you give her the break command?
Okay, so how are you employing it?
So like, I'll open the door and say whoa, and she'll I'll wait until she sits and looks at me and then say, break, and she leaves the door. So the couple times that she's like left the door before, because like if I don't say whoa, there are times where like if she's not hearing the verbal command, she'll just walk out. And I've just like dragged her back in and done it again. But I don't know if at that point I'm supposed to be applying an adversive to it or what.
So technically you can. What I would do is put her on a leash, have it dragging, go to the door, go to open the door, and I don't even say anything. Okay, especially with the front door, and if there's a rear door that goes into a yard or anything that leads to outside, you definitely, I would suggest you do this, okay? Is when you go to open the door, just a crack or whatever, puppy or dog usually goes nose to the crack because they know outside. And did I send you the videos on the bonkers?
Yeah.
Yeah, bonk. Okay, but I don't say anything.
Okay.
I go to open it. I got the leash on just in case, and you can even step on it. I go to open. She goes to make her way to sneak out. Whack. Right. So the cue, what you're teaching here is, so I'm not against the whoa. But what I'm teaching here is a default. Do not assume when I open the door that you're going to get to go out.
Right.
And I don't personally care what the dog does. I just care that they don't go out. Okay, and you can always make it more specific. So what I'm doing here is I go to open, she tries to sneak through, quick firm bonk, she jumps back like what the hell. I close it, I go back to open it again, see what she does. You might see her kind of fidget around because she's like, oh shit, the door's opening. Am I gonna get whacked? She doesn't, right? I open it completely, she's like kind of looking around. Maybe she tries to sneak through, but because I'm stepping on the leash, she can't make it. And then I whack her again. And then repeat the process. I close the door, slowly go to open. She thinks, holy crap, I'm gonna get whacked. Nothing happens because she didn't try to cross. I'm opening the door, no words have been said. She's looking out the door like, nothing's happening. And then I close it. And she goes, oh, it's not the door. It's when I think about running out the door. Okay, so what you've created is like a default whoa.
Okay.
Right? And then fast forward a bit, and like let's say you're going to open the door and she approaches, I would say whoa proactively, and you would see her most likely back off because she's going, oh, that's my warning of don't think about it.
Right.
But it's been reinforced with physical consequence.
Okay.
Okay. If you wanted to teach her the sit, you would want to correct the behavior first, make sure she learns that boundary. And then you would use, I wouldn't say sit, I would use my lure. So if I open it and I feed her for the sit, she's going, oh, don't think about crossing, and put my butt down and wait patiently until I hear my release word. Okay. So you're correcting not for not sitting, you're correcting for trying to sneak out. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and that was my fear of like, she's really good at it when I say something, but otherwise, and I don't want to have to say something. I just want her to know I could like leave the door open and cook and she's not going to go out.
Correct. And when we do thresholds like that, my suggestion is always you correct harsher than you would typically. Okay. Especially if it's like the front door.
Yeah.
Like, because dogs running out front doors and getting hit by cars is a leading cause of death. So, or is one of the leading causes of death. So I don't play any games there. And that's where she's like, she keeps 6 feet away from the door. She's like, screw that. I ain't trying to get corrected. Okay. Right. And it's all by default. And because for dogs, technically, if you said whoa before the correction, the time that you don't say whoa is the time that she can go through. Okay. You want default. When you see this door opening, you do not want to be right there trying to sneak out. Right. So like for me, when I walk in and out my rooms and stuff, if the door's closed and my dogs are in there with me, they might get up to see what I'm doing, but they don't follow me to go out. There's like no interest because they've been corrected that just because I go through a threshold doesn't mean you're going to get to come with me. Okay. And this was done without words, similar to what I'm telling you here. because I don't want to have to say things 1,000 times a day. You know. So does that answer your question?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And anything that you don't want her to do, you know, you always just correct. You know, barking out the front window, chewing on things, you know, going through certain thresholds. Maybe you don't, if you have a basement, you don't want her in the basement, period. That would be another place where you'd be like, yep, here's a very firm correction. And then, you know, if you want to tease her a bit and leave the door open and see what she does after, you know, a week or so of reinforcing it. Yeah. Okay. Anything else?
Nope, that answered my big question.
Do you want to get her or her tug or whatever? She went potty?
She's got to go.
Yeah, that's fine. Quick little potty break.
Or she just likes to go outside. We've only had 2 accidents since we met you last, and one was very much human error. The second one, I think her notifying us looked different because she's learned to go to the door. She knows which door she gets to go out. She didn't do that this time. But she was super hyperactive in the living room, and I think that was her notification. But
how long was she like that for?
It was probably like 10 minutes. All 3 of us were on the couch. She was just jumping up and down on our faces. And so we finally said off the couch, and she kept trying to jump up. So we're like, nope, nope, nope. And she went over to her bed, laid down and just whimpered quietly for a bit and then got quiet. And then she came around the couch, looked at us, and peed on the carpet.
Sure. Prior to her getting hyperactive, how long had it been before her last potty break?
30 minutes, 40 minutes.
Was she on a walk just prior or drank any water at that point, or?
No, because I had just taken her out, like she'd eaten and then I'd taken her out, and then we came back in here and cleaned up and sat down.
Gotcha. It's possible that was a cue of just like her overcompensating on the pay attention to me part. Or it actually could have been just the whole 10 minutes of hyperactivity, because that's one of the times when dogs or puppies will have to go, is within 10 to 15 minutes of having high activity, which is running around and jumping, all that stuff. Okay, so like if you see that, I assume that if I see that happening with the puppy, within 10 to 15 minutes, they're gonna have to go. During that activity, you know. So then sometimes, you know, it's all contingent on the owner. They might run the puppy out real quick in the middle of that process, let them potty and then bring them back in, and they're typically fine. Or they'll let them do that for 10, 15 minutes and then pick them up and kennel them until their next outing, because they know like you're going to have to go at some point.
Right.
So.
Yeah, and we were just figuring because it wasn't like a puppy spurt of energy. It was more like she was demanding that we let her sit in her face and, you know, like move around wherever she wanted to. So that was the only one that we were like, how did she, why?
Yeah, and then the whimper as well, right? Just before. So I would just, you know, keep an eye on it, be more mindful of what she does.
Okay.
And then just be aware that if you're reinforcing let us know when you have to go potty, if you miss them, you're going to get potty mistakes.
Okay.
Right? Because she's technically like, and it might be different, like you said, like this time around. So you have to kind of be more open-minded on, is she telling me that she has to go?
Right.
My guys aren't trained to tell me when they have to go, but they still tell me they have to go. Because like for instance, for my Chihuahua, I can tell when he has to go outside of the normal schedule because he gets really anxious. Okay. He starts panting and he'll start pawing at me and sitting and staring and panting. And that tells me he's got diarrhea. My Pit is very similar. She'll look anxious or she'll come and start crying a lot, like right in front of me, and she like never cries. So I know, I've learned that that's their cue of, hey, I know we're not on schedule, but I really have to go.
Okay.
So, okay.
Yeah. Otherwise.
What's that? She's been good?
Yeah, she's kept a good schedule otherwise.
Awesome. Let me think here. Anything else with her?
Nope.
How's she do with your son?
She does well. He's a very passive soul.
Sure.
And the first dog, like we had an issue when Doug was here. Doug was very interested in Jaden, and he would like sit, so he was touching him and just kind of stare at him and sniff him, and then eventually start humping him. And so Sydney, Sydney was explained to Jaden, like, it's about your energy and you're not letting him know you're in charge. So he's questioning. He's trying to figure out, like, oh, I think I'm a dominant to you. So we've worked a little bit on his energy. Remy's definitely more nippy with him, just because he has a harder time setting the boundary of, like, he'll correct her, but then he gets like, oh, oops, and like feels guilty or nervous. Yeah.
No.
And I think more of that's just like just feeling incompetent. Not that he doesn't want to, he just gets nervous.
Yeah, for sure. So that's not uncommon with young, because he's a early teenager.
He's 12, yeah.
12, yeah. So some of that can just be passive personality, the conception of I don't want to hurt the dog, right? Which even adults struggle with, and I'm used to working with this. So I actually have another client. They have 3 kids, and they have a 3-month-old golden doodle puppy who's like 10 pounds. And, I was talking to them about corrections and firm corrections and all that stuff. But the kids were like anti-correct the puppy. And then in the past week, one of the puppy actually bit the youngest daughter over a resource, over a bone. And I was like, yep, there you go. Like, even though it's a 3-month-old puppy, like now it's starting to set the boundaries, and it picked the weakest energy. And I was like, I highly suggest you have a sit down with your kids and tell them the importance and the healthiness of like corrections, because the dog is a dog at the end of the day, and whether or not they get it, of course, is contingent on them. But letting them know that you're not hurting the dog. Dogs bite each other, like it's part of like their form of discipline. And then I made a playlist. I'm not sure if I've sent it to you with like the puppies being corrected by their like mom and stuff.
I don't think you did.
All right, I'll put on my things to send you. But if you want to send that to your son and watch some videos with him, because it shows them like biting their puppies and stuff, and like, hey, this is how they treat each other. And what you're doing isn't abusive. What you're doing is setting a boundary, much like the mom would set a boundary. Otherwise, as she gets bigger, her and the relationship between the two of them can manifest in a couple of ways. It could be she starts to bully him, much like Doug was doing. And mounting isn't male or female related. It's just weak energy, strong energy.
Right.
Or like maybe when he walks her, she displays behaviors that she doesn't do with you guys, because you're giving off more of an assertiveness, or you've corrected her throughout her puppyhood, so she knows that she can't get away with that. So. Right.
Yeah, that would be helpful. That's always he's like that with people too. He's just a gentle soul.
Sure.
All right, she's back. Come here.
So you see, like right here, how she just goes for it.
Yeah.
Right. And whenever I bring anything out, I don't care if it is the dog's toy. I do not want them assuming that what I have in my hand is for them to engage with. Okay. So whenever you pull something out, I want you to think default, this is mine until I give you permission. Okay. So I never hide things. Okay. And for now it was fine. Like, and I saw you kind of like push her away with your hand. What you would actually do is correct her. Okay. So if you were another dog and you had a toy, correct, good job, and you came out with that toy and she came towards it, that dog would bite her. Okay. Right? So I want you to think that from now on, when you come out with a toy, with a bone, an antler, if she's being pushy and saying, gimme, 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 immediately you're correcting. Okay. So then she thinks, okay, just because you walk out with this toy doesn't mean I get to engage with it. Okay. And I might just walk across the room in front of her with the toy in my hand and not even engage with her. Because then if you always bring it out and you always engage with her, you're creating that guarantee of, yes, I'm going to play with you, which kind of counteracts everything, right? And it's kind of like, if you see me with this, maybe I play with you, maybe I don't, okay? So like here, after you corrected her, like that I would correct. Yep, correct her. Boom, there you go. Right, and you see how she walks away?
Yeah.
Okay, and she hops up on the couch. Like, that's really good. Okay, but then you might think, well, what the hell, Jesse? I'm trying to play with my dog too. All right. Getting her to play again, you know, is not hard to do. That's the easy work. Getting her to respect boundaries is the hard part. Okay, so I always do that first. I'm never worried about the play stuff because that's easy. I'm always worried about the discipline. Okay, so just even her coming to smell it is corrected. Okay, it's, this is mine, and until I say okay, you do not engage with it. Okay, do you have a release word for Remy?
Like for her to drop stuff.
Excuse me?
For her to like drop stuff.
Release more so like, let's say you told Remy place, a word that tells her, okay, now you're free from place.
Oh yeah, break.
Right, okay. So what you would do here is you call Remy and you can say, okay, Remy, break, right? And that's just kind of, how would you say, breaking the rule of her not being able to have it. Okay. And I'm going to have you engage with her and tug with her for a little bit. Go ahead. There you go. Right, good girl. Good. And then what I'll do is like I'll push her as she's like tugging and stuff just to kind of, yep, and then yep, back again. Good. Good.
She's timid. She usually goes for it.
And this is normal because she's being a little cautious because there was some discipline involved. So we're gonna let her play for a good minute or so just to let her relax a bit. Atta girl. Now what you're going to do is as you're playing with her, when you're ready, what word do you want to use? You're going to use drop or you're going to use out?
Drop.
Okay. Whenever you're ready, what you're going to do is you're going to freeze as you say the word drop simultaneously. If she continues to engage, you're going to then do a quick hand correction. Okay?
She got distracted.
Yep. So boop, 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 boop. Yep. There she goes. Atta girl.
Drop.
Right. And you're gonna hold it right there. Good. And I'm gonna have you just move it around, but not crazy. Just move it around like back and forth like this. Now correct her. There you go. Move it around again. Good. Hold her. Yep. Hold right there. Correct. Good. Wait. And then, okay, Remy, break.
Okay, Remy, break.
Good. There she goes. Yep. Good.
Yeah.
Good girl. Good girl.
Get your squirrel. Get your squirrel.
And then when you're ready, drop.
Drop.
Right? And then good. Now slowly move around. Good. And I'm going to have you place it just in front of you, like a foot out. Yeah, drop it right there. Good. Correct. Good. This is fine. Good. Go ahead and pick it up. And okay, break.
Okay, break.
Atta girl. Good girl. Yep.
Yeah.
Very good. Good. Good job. Now what we're going to do here is when you're playing with her, when you cue the word drop, if she releases immediately, I'm going to have you say, okay, break immediately thereafter to engage with her right away.
She's timid.
Yeah, and that's normal.
Drop.
Yes. Yeah, good. Yes, very good. Now, as you're playing with her here, if she gives a really good tug, I'm going to have you release. Like you yourself release the toy. There you go. Good girl. Good. And we're going to let her just have that for a second. Okay? So what we've done is empowered the word drop. Okay? Drop means release what you have. It is no longer yours. Or you no longer have access to it, right? And that's permanent until you give permission that she can re-engage. Okay? So when you did that correction, that's what empowered the word drop. Release or risk consequence, right? So since I saw you had good correction, so good job. On the third one, I was like, I'm pretty sure she's going to release it when you cue it. That we want to then reward that because there was no consequence, right? It was drop. Okay, mom. Excellent. Boom. Here we go again. So she goes, oh, drop doesn't guarantee correction, right? Drop just means release what you have, and I may potentially get to go play with it immediately again. Okay. So you're balancing out your play. And on that last part, I said when she gives a good tug, let her win. Okay. Right. So we're making it. It's not always win, 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 win. Right. Because with humans, win, 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 win isn't fun. Right. We share wins and losses. It's the same thing for your dog.
Okay. What we were worried about was like we want to play with her, but also for her to know like when we're done playing, we're done playing.
Correct.
But I don't feel like she can't. My fear was if she wins and takes it, that she's going to start thinking, oh, I can take it. Right. But I get what you mean, like of allowing it at certain times and then empowering, the drop it so that she knows.
Correct. So at the end of like when you see me playing with my pit, right, I might actually let her win more often than not. But I know even if she wins 9 out of 10 tugs, when I say drop, it's going to happen. So I'm ultimately the winner because I have the control, right? And like I really don't care what people do with their dogs when they have control. The problem is people create all these, these intensities and energies and lack of boundaries that the dog is there's no means of getting them back under control, And you guys are doing a very good balance of play with discipline. Okay, so good job on that. And even the stuff that you told me about like the thresholds, like I really like that you were doing thresholds and stuff like that. So all that's really good. Okay. When you play with her, like I wouldn't do that many drops within a session. I do that right now to teach you. Okay. But when I'm teaching a puppy in the early stages, if you do it too much, then the puppy's like, well, this isn't fun. Right. So I might do a 10-minute tug session with her, but only do 2 drops, and as she starts to learn the game of, oh, wow, like I can tug and I can growl because you'll get vocalization. You'll start to see the curling of the lips and stuff. It's okay. It's a part of the how they play. And the moment I say drop, let's say she's got that toy and she's just intense and you stop and you go drop and she lets go and she's passive. Or, she might be a little stimulated, but you can tell that there's just a shift in energy. That's how you know, like, oh, wow. Like, yeah, she gets it, right? And I'll actually make a note here. I'll do that with my pit. because that's something I've been wanting to do with my Pittie Lexi. Because when I grab her jowls, she's like snapping all over the place, and I'll walk away with marks and everything. But that's how we play, and it's not And people might argue like, well, she's putting her teeth on you and stuff. I'm like, yeah, but she's a dog, and I'm antagonizing. But I know once I say we're done, you'll see her shake, do the stress shake, and then she'll go and walk away and lay down. It's completely done. Okay, so
should we end that game on a drop, or just walk away?
On a drop.
Okay.
Yeah. So like, let's say you're playing with Remy, and you do 10 minutes, and she's really like just into it, and you cue drop. She releases. If you get up to walk away, like that's it, drop, good. I start to walk away, and if she continues to pursue and goes, "Hey, I'm not done," you would simply just correct.
Okay.
So then she learns, oh, drop sometimes means we're done, right? So remember, once you've cued it, it's off limits until you give her permission, right? So if I end the game, I start to walk away. She's jumping at the first time if you either see it or she thinks about jumping at it, you correct, right? I don't repeat the command. It's simply we're done. See what she does in response. She walks away. I go and I put it on top of the kitchen counter or whatever, on top of a table, so she can still look at it just to test her a little bit, right?
This is something that we typically leave this out because she'll pick it up and romp around with it. Should we be taking them away? Yes. Okay.
So, and all toys, bones, anything that is for her, okay, I always put away. Okay. Because when dogs have free access to it, it loses its value a lot of times. And then they start to like look to other things like your shoes. Because if you catch them with your shoes, you chase them to get your shoe back. Right? Plus, your shoes are maybe not always available. That's why they're more valuable to the puppy. And then when I see her being a brat or whatever, because if she always has access to things, it's either they lose value, or since she can just turn on whenever she wants, you start to see her more often than not engaging with stuff. And then with Pitties especially, they have stimulation issues. Okay, and then the dog can't turn off. So I always put things on the human's watch. I'll play with you when I want to play with you. And if the puppy comes and asks for me to play with them, I correct them, because that's what a dog would do. Dogs don't always engage with the puppy. If they're resting and the puppy comes over, they'll bite them and go, "I'm resting right now."
Yeah, Doug did that for 3 weeks.
Yes. Right. Yeah. So you can learn a lot just by watching how they treat each other. Don't feel bad, because that's how they treat each other. Okay. So we'll give her another go if you want to try it.
Yeah. You want to try it?
Let me see. Let me watch.
Okay.
So, and you'll do the same thing. If she releases immediately, just immediately reward with the okay break.
Okay. All right.
Good. Yeah. And it took her 2 corrections to achieve that. Because originally when she said drop, she would keep tugging, so she did the correction, and on the 3rd one, she just spit it out as soon as she heard the cue. Okay.
Drop.
There, right? Now you're going to pause for a second. Now go ahead and move it around a little bit. And then when you're ready, okay, break.
I know. You're here? Okay. I'm not grabbing Nathan.
She's way more cautious.
Yeah. As you do this more with her, she's going to get comfortable.
Yeah.
Good. And then on a good tug, you'll release again. There you go. Good girl. Good.
Girl.
Yeah. That's really good.
Oh, she's distracted. No, you're good. That's a good opportunity to practice with the door.
Yep. So I can see where the light's coming through, and if you look at her body language, she's watching everybody, but there's no interest to follow. That was really good. Like that. Very good.
Cool.
Awesome.
Come on, so one more time. Come on.
Good. Now on this one, on a good tug, you'll let her win again. We're going to let her have it. And then as she's engaged with it, I'll have you at some point say drop again, okay? So technically, it's still released, and she can come back to it, okay? Because you didn't cue drop, she just won.
Yeah. Where's your squirrel? Get your squirrel. Get it. Get it.
Good.
She's really calm right now.
That's the rules.
So let her have it.
Just let go of it.
Okay, and then now that she has it, what do you want us to do?
Just let her enjoy it for a second. Oh, let's see. Oh, she got distracted.
Just a second, sorry.
There's,
Come here.
good. So, like, let's say she sat there and she like played with it for a minute to herself, right? As she's playing with it, I don't have hands on it, right? I would say drop to see will she release it if I don't have hands on the object. Because every time you did that, you had your hand on it, right?
Drop.
And I'll wait. Right? Oh. So here what you'd want to see is that when you did the correction, she would stand up and then just walk away.
I didn't correct very hard.
Yeah, it's okay. But that's what you'd be looking for. So then, because these are different scenarios for her. You know, like for you, you know drop means just spit it out, right? But for her, it's different between drop when you and her both have it, good job, and when she just has it. You know what I'm saying? Good. And just watch. Good. There you go. And in here, if you see this kind of submissive behavior, what I would do is I pat like very firm pats, and I put like kind of like that football energy. You know what I'm saying? Like when they hit each other really hard, and what you're trying to do is you're balancing out the discipline. You know what I'm saying? Like you're saying like yes, there was discipline, but it's okay. You're not so much consoling. You're just really kind of like toughening her up and just giving her a bit of energy. Good. And go ahead and just pick it up. Good. And then go ahead and just set it behind you right there on the ledge of the couch. There you go. right? So now the game is done. Okay.
Yeah.
And when you end it, I would love to see her go back to that energy. Okay. So you want to be able to create it, but then you also want to be able to stop it as well. Okay. And the caution that you saw is perfectly healthy. It's normal. It means it's resonating. But I wouldn't do it that frequently within an actual playing session, right? We did that for the sake of training. So like, let's say later today you play with her. I might play with her for 10 minutes and let her win a bunch, and then do one drop at the very end, and then it's done, right? So you're trying to balance out like, hey, if you respond to this word, you're not always going to get corrected.
Right.
And once she understands the game, you're gonna see that energy that you probably saw previously that was like unharnessed. But now when you cue the word drop, she's gonna go boom, just dial down. Okay, very good. Questions?
No, that was good. I think that's been a big. We want to engage with her and play with her. We just don't want to push her too hard either. So that's a really good thing to practice.
For sure. I think Cesar Millan has like a raising a puppy video book that I think is a good book. I've read a couple of his like Be the Pack Leader and Raising a Puppy or something like that.
I think that one it's called The Perfect Puppy or something like that.
Yeah. That's probably it. Yeah, I read these like 10 years ago, back when I still read. I don't read anymore, but they're good books. This is definitely Cesar Millan territory, what we're doing here. This to me is more important than the sit and the down stuff.
Right.
Okay, like that can always be taught. But what you did at that door right there, putting rules to the play, the things that you don't want, that's the real important stuff. Okay? Anybody can teach sit and down or whatever, but it's more so like don't run out the front door, don't get too rowdy. Not everything in this house is yours. Like that's the important stuff. Okay.
Okay.
Excellent. Anything else?
No, I think that was awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome. So I think, what is this, number 4 or 5?
This is number 5.
Okay. So you have one more, and then what I'd suggest, if there's anything that you're still struggling with, or like maybe you have a list of questions and stuff. Kind of do like an overview or a review of anything. If you want to take a couple of weeks, whatever, just so you have time to see like what are we still struggling with. I don't have a problem with it. Whenever you're ready, you can just contact us. Otherwise, you can book it for next week or whatever, and then we'll cover whatever you need. Okay.